What is up, guys? If you are into dirt bikes at all, you have probably noticed that hard enduro is really starting to take off here in the US. So if you're a cross country racer today, or maybe you're a moto racer and you're thinking about going to some of these races, or maybe you just want to start riding some of that kind of terrain with your buddies, that really nasty, gnarly single track and log crossings and rock gardens, then stick around because today's episode of The Whole Shot, we're going to talk about what you need to do to your bike so that you don't tear it up.
What up, what up, what up? Today, Kevin and I are going to be going over the transitioning differences from going from XC to hard enduro. We're going to look at bike setup, what it takes to transition from XC to hard enduro, kind of the differences between the two, and kind of what to expect, maybe some extra pieces to the bike you're going to want to add on. Um, so, to start it off, I guess we can go right to the differences in between protection because that's kind of the biggie right off the bat. XC, I'll go over like a real basic of it. XC is kind of going to be light. You're not going to have all these fancy heavy duty billet parts. You know, don't necessarily need them. You're in an XC race, you're not really worried about, nailing a rock at even 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. Whereas an XC, it's a lot more dirt. You're going to see a little rock, little logs and stuff, but nothing too bad. So yeah, it's mainly about hard parts and the differences between what those hard parts do and whether or not they're worth it or not. So first off, I guess Kevin, you want to talk a little bit about some of those hard parts?
Yeah, so I think for me, what I found over the years doing cross country was kind of the minimum was hand guards, so full hand guards, mostly just to protect the levers. I mean, not so much to keep the brush off your hands, but just when you drop the bike to keep it off the levers. Some degree of a skid plate underneath. I mean, we still have a lot of trees, log crossings, sometimes rocks. We've had a few cross country races with little rock gardens in them. Um, and what else is that the majority of it? Radiator guards, right? Because you can
Thank
drop your
God.
bike at a standstill and bust your radiators up. So radiator. So those are the three biggest things I think that I found that were necessary, and everything else was kind of optional.
Yeah, I would agree. There's not really, once you get past those three, there's not really anything additional that you would need or really need to worry about. Um, Maybe a mud rotor guard, a mud rotor guard for the front end, which is really kind of one of those optional things. It's kind of nice, keep mud off of it, but I've raced without them. I've raced with
Mm.
them, and I really didn't notice a difference. So it's one of those fluky things.
Yeah, I never had one, and we did a whole lot of mud races and never really had too much of an issue with that.
So yeah, skid plate, kind of basic, at least for most of us. You'll see those real fancy, heavy duty, uh, like aluminum, steel plate. I think mainly aluminum plates that have like wraparound exhaust guards and this, that, and the other. Um, you don't need it in XC. Maybe a pipe guard. Pipe guard if you're running a two-stroke would be a big deal. But even then, you can get away with a carbon fiber one versus one of the bigger heavy-duty aluminum ones that's meant to take a beating.
Yeah,
Um,
unless you're wrecking the bike, you're just not bouncing off a lot of stuff.
yeah. Um, so yeah, kind of the basics there. Those are the three really basic uh, things, at least in our opinion, that I think you really need to upgrade or buy to go XC racing.
Yeah, I'd agree. So what about what? So how does that compare to hard enduro? What do you have to add on for hard enduro?
Well, for me, I haven't done a ton. Um, I've added a front rotor guard and a billet front rotor guard, um, just because we're bouncing through rocks and trees and a lot of rocks. If you've never raced a hard enduro, it's all about just gnarly. and rocks are everywhere. Um, watch a video of the TKO. I think Red Bull actually just dropped theirs on YouTube of this past year's, and it's rocks all the time. There's not a lot of dirt. We've raced it a couple years, and I mean, there's dirt, but there's just as many rocks as there are dirt. And being able to protect your front rotor is probably the most vital thing you can do for hard enduro, other than the three we mentioned. Uh, just because, well, I've bent rotors before, and you're done. It ruins your day instantly.
Yeah. The so we did Saddleback and TKO both last year. I didn't run front rotor guards, and I found later on when we started TKO last year, I found that my rear rotor guard, I had busted it off at the race prior, and I wasn't too far into the race before. I mean, I had bounced off of the rear and bent that rotor. I mean, I think I was okay with the front, but yeah, I think absolutely necessary. You need rotor guards front and rear for hard enduro.
If you don't have a billet rear, I would for sure upgrade that too. Um, I know some of them kind of, even some of the factory ones are not very viable, and some bikes don't even come with a rear guard, which I think is kind of weird, but definitely put one on. The rear to me wouldn't be quite as, I don't know, quite as big as a priority. If you had to, buy one thing at a time, I would buy a front first all day before you buy your rear.
Hmm. I know the one I'm running right now, I think is a TM Design Works, and it's it's some kind of plastic. It's not steel, so we'll see how that thing holds up. But
I don't know. Mine's billet, and I'm gonna keep it on there until it breaks.
yeah, yeah. So what else? Anything else you need protection wise, hard enduro?
If you're on a two-stroke, definitely a pipe guard. Uh, you'll see a lot of guys running like the carbon fiber ones. They work. They do protect the bike. They do protect the guard or the pipe itself. Um, but I've seen a lot of those where they take one hit just right on the pipe guard and it'll shatter because they're carbon fiber usually.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, they can't take that little puncture resistance. Once they get punctured the slightest bit, they just shatter.
Yeah. So I don't have one. I didn't get one for my bike this year. And I read an interesting thing not too long ago, and they were saying that um it could almost be worse having a guard. And the reason they said that was because sometimes those guards stiffen the pipe up so much that when you take a hit, it transfers all that energy over to the mount onto the cylinder. And so you can end up tweaking that or something. And I mean, I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but
I have a little, well, let's see, I run a Flatland aluminum pipe guard on mine. It's not one of the built-in ones to the skid plate. It's separate. It just bolts to the pipe itself. I bit my neck a couple of times and tweaked it. So it does transfer energy because that's the spot where it's basically going to be the weakest. Is right there where it connects to the two mounting points of the cylinder head or the cylinder. So yeah, I could see the issue brought up there, but at the same time, I'm still on the same pipe for 4 years. I've never swapped one. I've never dinged it up. The Flatland guard I have is great. I really, really like it. And I really don't like the big, the ones that are, skid plate, pipe guard, the whole thing.
yeah, they're huge.
They're huge. They weigh a ton. And to me, they're big mud catches. If you race that thing on a muddy, hard enduro, prepare for gobs of mud getting stuck in between your pipe and the frame of the bike.
Right. All right, cool. And so is that it? Is that all you need for hard enduro? That's it?
Eh,
Guard, skid
as far as
plate, rotor guards, rad guards.
yeah, I think so. As far as protection goes, yeah, it's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. So what else going from cross country to hard enduro? I think probably fans come up, fans and or engine ice. Like how necessary is that? I think I know for me, riding cross country, a fan was pretty important because, especially when we had mud races and you're not moving real fast. I personally think they are important for hard enduro as well, but it probably really depends on how good of a rider you are.
Yeah, I'd concur. An XC race, yeah, fan's great. It's not the end of the world. You can get away with it to some extent. I mean, an XC race, yeah, it depends. If it's super muddy, I mean, there's races where we've barely moved at all, and those fans are working overtime because we're just trying to go. We're in a hard enduro. If you're in that kind of situation, you're probably taking some breaks because you're probably worn out by the time the fan would kick on, and you're shutting your bike off a lot. And XC, I don't think I ever shut my bike off on purpose
Right.
unless something was way wrong. Like it was running the whole time, 2 hours plus. But in a hard enduro, yeah, I could see it. In a in a hard enduro, I could see the benefits of it. I have one on mine, and I have Milo doubles on mine for the extra coolant. Um, but depending on your, like Kevin said, depending on your skill set, maybe you suck that bad that you're not really going all that far, so you're shutting your bike off all the time. And if you're doing that, you're really not overheating it all that much. I could see though if you're on like chicken fight down at Battle of the Goats, that hill is gnarly, and if you're really working up a muddy, gnarly hill like that, that fan would be a big bonus.
Yeah. All right. All right. Cool. So handguards, skid plate, rotor guards, front rear, fan. Um, what else is different from cross country? How about like tire systems? Like I don't know. So I ran in cross country. I ran tubeless primarily because I just like the traction and I like the adjustability. You could go from 0 pounds to whatever 10 or 11 pounds if you wanted to. I know a lot of guys in hard enduro, well, even a lot of guys in cross country ran bibs because they didn't want to risk the flats. And I know a lot of guys that ran tubes or extra heavy duty tubes and never had a problem in cross country.
Yeah, same as you. I've heard all those things, and in cross country, I don't really think it matters quite so much in cross country. You're not running if you're running 1 or 2 pounds of psi in a rear, it better be super muddy, and you're probably not going very fast. Um, but yeah, I've heard guys using tubes, tubeless, bibs. I've heard the whole shebang on those in cross country. Where in hard enduro, I would never race with a tube. I wouldn't waste the time to race with a tube. Yeah, 10, 15, 20 years ago, when that was it, yeah, that's what guys raced with. But in the hard enduro now, you have a couple of options: tubes, or not tubes, tubeless, bibs, and there's a few guys out there I know of that run like tire balls.
I've heard of that. I don't know of anyone.
Yeah, I know of a couple. I don't really know them, but I know of a couple of guys who are toying around with it a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't know much of the info behind that though.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know anything about tire balls. Maybe that's a good option, but my opinion is either tubeless or bibs. If you're really worried about flats, you're really competitive and you don't want to risk, being knocked out from a pinch flat or whatever, I think bibs are the way to go. I like the adjustability of tubeless. Having said that, this year I'm going to tubeless in the rear and the bib in front because I've just had so many problems with tubeless over the last couple of years, holding air in that low pressure side. And so, and it's not a big deal in the back. You can go down to 0 pounds, especially in a hard enduro. You can go down to 0 pounds, no problem in the back. But in a cross country race in the front, you go down to 0 pounds, and that's or 0 pounds, and that's a big problem in a faster race. So I'm kind of tired of messing with those.
Yeah, same as me. I'm doing the same. Bib up front, tubeless in the rear. I just retaped my rim actually yesterday. Put a new Kinder gauntlet on the rear. But yeah, in an XC you can get away, even in a hard enduro both. You can get away with a rear flat. Front flats suck, especially if it's fast. Hard enduro would be
Yeah.
the same thing. Hard enduro would be the same thing. And the problem with having a flat on the front is you're abusing your front so much and bouncing it off of stuff. The rear follows your front, but the rear's so big and fat that you're not really going to hurt anything. Whereas a flat front, you don't have any rim protection. Um, you're
No,
just
well, they'll roll
yeah,
really bad. That I mean, the last cross country race I did where I lost all the pressure in the front, I was on my ass multiple times on that race. I mean, it was a pretty quick race, going through a turn, just from flying to being on my ass, and it was, yeah, it was terrible. Like, in a hard enduro, maybe it's not as bad, and except when you're on some of those transfer sections to get from one spot to the next. But yeah, it's a race ender when you get a flat in the front.
yeah, for sure. I've raced plenty of races where I've had a flat rear and just
Yeah,
went the whole time.
might have even been better.
Yeah.
So, all right. So how about the tires themselves? Like cross country, like what do you like in a cross country race versus a hard enduro race for like tire brand type?
So I'm a big Kenda guy. I only run Kendas. Um, at cross country, last year I tried out the new Washugo 3. Um, it's a stiff tire. It's a medium, but it was incredibly impressive. I never had an issue in any terrain or any grip issues. It was a really versatile tire. Um, I've ridden the Millville before and a few other, the Washugo and a couple others, the Washugo 2. The Millville rolls, I didn't like it. It's got taller knobs. It rolls really bad, and you can feel it, especially at high speed. The Washugo planted really well. And in the rear in XC, I'm a big fan of Southwicks. It's a soft through Kenda, like a 100, 118. Yeah. Smaller tire. That's another difference that you'll see between cross country and hard enduro. Hard enduro guys, we're packing 130, 140 rears on the back, looking for every millimeter of width we can get. Which, if you don't know what the numbers are on that tire, on like a 110, 100, that's actually the measurement. The first number is basically how wide it is. So if it's a 100, it's 100 millimeters wide, and it's 100 millimeters tall if it's 100, 100. Whereas at a hard enduro, the tire I put on my gauntlet, I'm looking at, is a 130/80. So it's 130 millimeters wide and only 80 millimeters tall. So you'll see a difference between tire types.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that my YZ250FX that came with a 110, 118, and the Beta 200 actually came with a 140. So I was surprised that a bike of that, I mean, a relatively smaller bike came with such a wide tire on the back. And I think that's why, is it's just more geared towards that single trail hard enduro type riding.
Yeah, for sure. What about you? What are your preferred tire choices? Oh, king of the mud.
So
Mud tire.
so for cross country, I have two go-to tires that I really like here in the Midwest, and that is I'll run a Starcross 5 soft front and rear. If it's dry at all, or that kind of loamy, those type of loamy conditions. If it's muddy, I'll run a Dunlop. It used to be an MX-11, now an MX-12 in the back, and I know that tire looks ridiculous. But that thing's it's a game changer in the mud. I mean, it'll just scoop you right out of anything. It actually performs pretty well even when the mud dries up. I was at a race, I don't remember which one, but it started out pretty soft and wet, dried up. The track became very tacky, and it still held up really great. So for cross country, Starcross 5 and MX-12s if it's muddy. Now for hard enduro, I don't really know. I don't have that much experience. I ran the Ibex. I think both times we did the TKO, and probably ran that at Saddleback as well. And that tire really performed pretty well. I'm going to try some different tires this year. I just bought a IRC JX8. It's a new tire. Supposedly works well with tubeless, even though it has a very soft carcass. So we'll find out. But that's where I'm at with hard enduro.
Yeah, my hard enduro, like I said, I'll run an Ibex up front this year. Once I can finally get a tire order in, I'm gonna get the new gnarly front, and
I would like to
actually
try that.
get a checkout on that. I think Josh actually just got one in today, so I'm interested to see his report on it.
I've heard good
Um,
things about it.
yeah, I have too. In the rear, last year I ran a gnarly at Saddleback and TKO. I ran it in both directions. It's a bidirectional tire. I think I ran it soft at TKO and intermediate at Saddleback. Intermediate, it actually chunked. I was kind of surprised. And soft, it rounded, but it didn't chunk. Um, but it was a good tire. It gripped well, especially side hilling and off camber. It did really well. There's Ibex up front both time or every hard enduro for the last couple of years. This year I've got a I had a gauntlet. I ordered it last year. It's been sitting in my pile. I've been wanting to try it. It's kind of got a bigger clean out, wider spacing in the treads for easier clean out. It's a little bit stiffer than the gnarly. It's still a gummy, but I wanted to try it. I figure this COVID race coming up in a couple weeks will probably be pretty good because odds are it's going to be muddy. It's
It's gonna be a
February.
mix too. Yeah.
It's February, so if I can get a tire that's going to clean out in the mud stuff, that'll be a bonus.
That's what I was worried about with that COVID coming up is like that Ibex does, it's amazing on rock, wet, dry rock, but it wasn't real great in like dirt or mud or loose dirt or mud. And I don't know, I'm not that familiar with Alabama, but I think we're going to have a mix. I mean, I think it's going to be rocks and a lot of mud. So I wasn't, we'll see. We'll see what it's like.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know either. Hopefully it doesn't rain.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't rain. All right, cool. So kind of covered tires a little bit there. What else do you need coming from cross country for hard enduro that you might not have had before? I think tugger straps. So I had tugger straps on my bike even for cross country, just because of some of the mud races. If you sink your bike in a rut, it's real convenient to have a tugger strap on the seat or even in the front to get the bike out. I think those are pretty important. And the hard enduros we've done, those have come in really handy, especially if you have one of those toe straps that you can tie to one of the tuggers to help pull your buddy up or over an obstacle or pull whoever up over an obstacle. So I think those are kind of required. They don't make one for the beta right now. I put one on the front. They don't make one for the rear. So I may try to rig something up for that.
Yeah, tugger strap would definitely be a bonus. Like you said, it's real handy, especially if you're tying a strap to it. Because if you tie a strap to one side of the forks, you're always pulling that one side and twisting the guy's bars. Whereas if you can get it right in the center of that tugger strap, and you're pulling on that tugger strap, you're pulling on both tubes at the same time. So it makes it a little more convenient for the guy trying to control the bike. And if it's like a spectator, which most races now don't allow spectator help, but they do allow other racer help. And if a racer reaches down and he can easily grab that tugger strap, he's going to. If he's going to try to help you, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yep, right there.
Yeah, my bike on the rear has built-in handles. It's a 15, which is great because I can just grab it, pick it up that way. So I don't need a rear. But
they got rid of it on mine.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's the best feature.
Yeah. Yeah, mine is on the new betas. There's a little finger grooves underneath the seat, but they're built into that huge, I don't know, what do you call that thing? It's got the undertail, the fender and the license plate mount and all that garbage. It's on there. So if you take that off, then all of a sudden there's nowhere to grab the rear by.
I didn't like that design anyways, because if you think about it, where are you putting your hand? If you're riding in a mud race and you go to put your hand down there, the last thing you want to do is put your gloves on a muddy rear fender to
it's going to be coated. Yeah. I agree.
So
yeah, I agree. So tugger straps necessary. So what else? Is there anything else you need to go do a hard enduro? Is that it?
I mean, if you're gonna go from XC to hard enduro, and like commit to hard enduro, suspension revalve would be huge.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're gonna run way stiffer, or not really way stiffer, but it's gonna be harder for XC versus hard enduro. Hard enduro, guys are backing clickers all the way off. They're letting their sag, upping their sag a little bit just so that it's a little plusher ride. Even doing so much as pulling fork oil out of their forks, to make them softer so they're not as harsh. It's definitely suspension.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I know there's a million suspension shops around. I did on the FX for cross country. I did Race Tech Gold valves, which I thought was a huge improvement. I mean, the Kayaba SSS forks are great anyway, but that was a huge improvement. So I agree with you. Whatever you're racing, right, you should do your suspension. No matter what you do, no matter what you race, you should at a minimum put in the right springs for your weight, right? And then
Yeah,
you should probably valve for whatever it is that you're racing, whether it's cross country or hard enduro or trail riding or whatever, because that just it creates such a better experience for riding the bike.
yeah, for sure. Last year I ran Olin's front end, um, and it was much firmer. It was a closed chamber system. I actually took it out and sold it this year because I'm committing full time to hard enduro. Um, and so I actually went back to my open chamber sack stuff that I had re-shimmed a couple years ago up in Michigan at a shop up there. Um, and it's a lot softer. It's a lot plusher. And I'm gonna take the same bike to go do some XC stuff, but commit to one way or the other. If you're gonna go to hard enduro, have it set up for hard enduro, and then if you go do an enduro like an NAPG or a cross country race, GNCC, whatever, then just crank your clickers in and ride it as best you can. But yeah, you definitely gear your suspension one way or the other for whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. All right, cool. Is that it? Anything else you need to do hard enduro? I think that's it.
Uh,
Get out and ride it. Get out and do it.
maybe a seat change,
A seat
depending on your
change?
seat. Yeah,
Why is that?
depending on gripper seats. Gripper seats are amazing. Um, when you're on a hard enduro, you're actually all over the seat, on the front of the seat, the back of the seat. I even sat on my fender at Saddleback last year on a hill. I was literally sitting on my fender trying to put as much weight on the back of my bike as I could because I needed my rear to get grip. The gripper seat would be a huge bonus. Even an XC. I've raced with mine with a gripper seat for years. I really like them. Mine's actually lowered a little too. But gripper seat, if you can afford it, a gripper seat would be well worth the money just to keep yourself in place.
Yeah, I have never used a gripper seat. I'd like to try that.
Worth their money.
The money.
I think Moto
Um,
Seat sells a seat cover you can buy.
is that right?
Yeah, it's just actual,
Just the material?
yeah, just the material.
Hmm.
I think. Pretty sure, because I'm getting ready to replace mine. And I bought just material.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So,
All right, cool. So what's coming up, man? What's the next episode?
oh, next episode. What is it? Prequel to COVID Crusher 2.0.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. I don't know. We'll do some bench racing. Talk about what we've done this year in prep. Yeah, and our expectations, I guess, which
Yep.
are pretty low.
Yeah, pretty low. Yep. So next episode will be the COVID Crusher 2. Kind of talk about, like Dusty said, plans for the race, strategies, what we think we're getting into. We haven't been to the COVID Crusher 2. So just talking about how we think that's going to go. And then we'll do, of course, we'll get some race footage of the race from both of us as well as others if we can. We got several friends that are going with us. Afterwards, we'll do a follow-up video, just kind of how we did, how much we hate ourselves, how much we destroyed our bikes. Some of these guys that are racing this series, talk about how everyone did, what positions they got and everything. But should be a good time. I mean, I'm ready to ride. I don't know about you, and I don't know about everybody else, but I am sick of sitting in my basement and not riding and not doing anything.
I'm sick of not riding. I'm ready to get it on. It's been a couple months.
Me
My
too.
bike's. I'm still piecing my bike together right now. It's still in pieces right now, so
Yeah,
I
I
gotta get it done.
really. So I'm almost done. I got a kickstart kit sitting over here that I need to put on my bike because it did not come with the kickstart, and a fan. I think once I do that, I'm good to go. But I love it when you got time to hit the gym and get in great shape and prepare for the season and just hit it strong right out of the gate. And I didn't do any of that. I've been sitting here drinking beer and doing jack shit. So
Well, we went mountain biking, what, two and a
yeah,
half weeks ago in the
yeah,
mud?
I've ridden the bicycle a couple times. I've gone for a run a couple times. And that's about it. So, all right, cool. So what's else? What else, man? What's our what's your outro here? Parting words.
I don't know. Have fun. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So I would say, look, if you ride already, if you ride cross country, if you ride moto, if you are just an avid trail rider, you just enjoy riding, and you haven't gotten out to try some of this hard enduro stuff, do it. You know, it's amazing how freaking hard it is, and how punishing it is, and still how enjoyable it is. You know, it's just the best time you can have. And it reminds me of when we first started cross country. Like, man, I just want to be able to get all the way through a, you know,
One lap.
yeah, I just want to be able to finish a lap. And then it was, man, I just wish I could finish a lap without having to take a break because I'm so freaking tired. That's kind of how hard enduro now is to me. It's like, I just want to be able to do a little bit better and a little bit better. And so if you haven't done it, you should do it. And I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think we're both looking forward to the challenge and doing something new this year and actually challenging ourselves and our skills and our abilities on a bike versus just going out and turning laps in XC.
Right. Just lap after lap. And how can I get a little bit of extra time in?
Yeah, where's that 1 minute I need?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. You know, we're going to do these videos. If you would rather listen to these as a podcast while you're out running or working in the garage or whatever, you can find this on iTunes, Stitcher, Anchor, you know, wherever. So look that up as well if you'd like. But thanks for catching us. We'll see you at the next one when we talk about COVID Crusher 2.0.
Peace.